Hello, my name is Peter Vell. I've been a professional cellist in London for many years and in latter years have become known as a dealer and an adjuster of string instruments, of course emphasising the cello. This video will help you in choosing a cello. Cellos come in many different sizes and forms. I'm going to discuss now in choosing a full-size cello which is 4/4. There are some measurements which are essential. Firstly, the length of the back, which is from the edge of the cello here, not the top of the button, from the edge of the cello to the bottom edge of the cello. This has to be a minimum of 74 centimeters and a maximum of 79. If it's below this, it's not a full-size cello, and above this, it's some variant on a cello and would be difficult to play and, more importantly, difficult to sell. Another measurement is from the edge of the cello here to the middle of the bridge, which is generally opposite the nicks on the cello. This should ideally be 40 centimeters, can be a little less on a smaller cello, but no more, because as I emphasized before, a big cello is difficult to play and difficult to sell. The other measurements of the neck can be found on my video on getting the best out of your cello, which is on my website or on YouTube under Getting the Best Out of Your Cello, Peter Vell. Any measurements of the neck, if they're wrong, can be altered, but could be at some expense. Now we'll talk about the condition of the cello. Obviously on a new cello you need it to be no cracks and good shape. That is to be expected. On an old cello we'll talk about the ribs. The ribs can be cracked quite considerably on old cellos because they were often, especially in English instruments, made very thin, and in the old days when you clamped the cello between your knees without an end pin, they were susceptible to being cracked. If there aren't too many of them and they are stuck together properly and well level, don't worry too much about them. You get some cracks on the corners which can be open quite a lot, which is due to the different expansions of the corner blocks and the ribs. They may look a little bit ugly, but they're not structurally important, and actually they're quite difficult to mend. The front of a cello, as it's made of softwood, can get cracked quite easily, and in an old cello there could be quite a number of cracks. As long as they're not too extensive and they are level and closed and the general shape of the instrument is good, that shouldn't be too much of a cause for concern. It could be reflected in the price of the instrument. Two areas which are problems with cracks are firstly the sound post. Under the sound post, a crack here has to be repaired in a special way with a patch underneath it. This is one of the templates I use for patching under the sound post. It should be of considerable size to spread the pressure over the belly. If it's well done, on an old cello it doesn't affect the value too much and should not affect the sound either. Another crack which could be problematic is a bass bar crack, which is running down here under the bass foot of the bridge. Obviously there's a bass bar glued to the belly here, and a crack above it could be a problem and should be well repaired and especially be of a good shape. If the edges of the crack tend to go downwards like that, that is a problem, which means the bass bar has to be removed and it has to be well repaired by a competent luthier. if you want to see what's happening in the front of the cello, you can take the end pin out and look up the hole there with a suitable light over the air folds, and you can see what's going on. Now, cracks in the back should not be very extensive because the back is made of hardwood. A few cracks coming in from the edge, not very long, are not so much of a problem. And if an instrument the back is what we call cut on the slab, which means it's a very swirly grain, then you can get some expansion cracks. A problem with the back is if you have a crack where the sound post is. This has to be repaired well from the inside, and you can see it through the F-hole if it has been done. And the thing about this is it will affect the value of the cello, probably by about 30%, so you could be in line for a bargain. Check that the scroll on your cello, if it's an old one, is the original. If not, this could reduce the price by about 25%, another chance for a bargain. Now, cheap cellos. Of course, when I say cheap, the cheapest do cost some hundreds of pounds. Do not buy an instrument that has stained pegs or a stained fingerboard, because this cannot be adjusted in any way. When you get a cello, it has to have a certain amount of work done on it by a competent luthier, and the strings changed and the bridge refitted maybe or recut. So either get the cello from a competent luthier who also deals in instruments, or a shop which has a workshop attached to it so that they can do this work. And of course, on a very cheap instrument, this is not worth doing. So try to get the best that you can afford, which of course will be a considerable expense. Nationality. Some people make a big deal of the nationality of a cello. Of course, cellos can reflect their origin, and the best cellos are the old Italian, but they can be very expensive. The French can have good projection, but rather hard, and English cellos can have good quality, but not much projection. These are generalities, and many do not conform to this. In my professional career, I've played Italian, Anglo, French, English, German and modern cellos. Now, tonal qualities. The first consideration is that the cello must be responsive and be loud enough, especially on the C string. If it's not loud enough, then don't buy it. A lot of people say a quiet cello is good for chamber music. This is absolute nonsense. Try playing the second cello part in the Schubert cello quintet or a late Beethoven quartet. Next is the quality of it. Try to get a sound which is not bland like a saxophone, but with some character. This is very subjective, and for me the ideal is to think of a very good Italian tenor. This video has been a bit long and a bit involved. I hope you're not got too bored, and should be used in conjunction with my other video, which is getting the best out of your cello, which is on my website or on YouTube. I've done this video because the other videos I've seen on choosing a cello have been rather sketchy. And as it says on my website, I will cheerfully give unlimited advice. Thank you.